Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Rage Against the Regime at Blog Talk Radio. To call in, dial 929-477-3565. That's 929-477-3565. I was born in the land of the free, in the home of the brave. I'll bleed American blood until the end of my days. The red, white, and blue, these colors never fade. Rage against the regime.
Well, here it is, Tuesday, and this is James, and I'm missing my partner, K.C. Massey. Right now, he's sitting down in Brownsville in the Hooskow waiting on tomorrow, so we'll find out what tomorrow brings for the brother. Hopefully it'll be his extraction from a very, very uncomfortable situation. Well, the boards aren't lit up at all, and it looks like I'm just talking to myself, so haha. I like to hear the sound of my voice anyway. I got sent in some stuff from Gary Hunt today, and it's in regards to, let's see what the title, yeah, go ahead and get that. Let's see what the title is on this. Thought Crimes. What have we come to? By Gary Hunt. This is March 30th, 2010. The recent arrest of members of the Hutaree militia, Hutaree. Okay, I'm not real good at pronouncing that, but Hutaree militia, not making fun of you guys, I just can't pronounce it, poses a perplexing dilemma for all of us. Many have reacted if they were going to do that, then, yeah, they should go to prison. Well, perhaps so. After all, that comes under the heading of law and order. And though it does not come under the heading of crime, we have been conditioned to accept the conclusion that laws lead to order. In addition, this is, of course, leads to a well-ordered society. In fact, it is the epitome of a well-ordered society. Anybody who even thinks against the order established by the government, the Constitution notwithstanding, is guilty of a crime. Now, many will contest that thinking is not applicable here. They argue that they played out their scenario in a practice run. I don't know if all the facts are in yet, though we will most surely hear the government side only of what has occurred, and we'll have already seen, the rush to judgment. Perhaps this points out the need to understand what real law and real crime really is. From Webster's 1828 dictionary, crime. It's a noun. An act which violates a law, divine or human, an act which violates a rule of moral duty, an offense against the laws of light prescribed by God or man, or against any rule of duty plainly implied by those laws. A crime may consist in omission or neglect, as well as omission and transgression. And this comes to point with K.C. Massey and everybody that was down there at Camp Lone Star and everybody that has been on our southern borders to repel the invasion that has been plaguing our nation for the last 5 years, and just now getting to the boiling point that it's a crime, an omission, or neglect to not act within the laws of our nation. It was plainly in our Constitution and in our state constitution that when the powers that be, the state government, the federal government, whichever or both collectively neglect to protect our borders, it falls to the citizens. It falls to us to do that. And that's what K.C. Massey went to the border to do. He was not going to be guilty by omission of not doing what he was called to do. And yet, those same federal authorities that were supposed to be protecting our borders have incarcerated him with a law that doesn't have anything to do or pertain to what he was doing at the time. I mean, we've all heard the story so far and know the fact about the law that he's been arrested under, and that he was not involved in commerce at the time, and he wasn't affecting commerce either, so it doesn't apply. So what took the judge so long to rule? I don't know. But in a more common, restricted sense, a crime denotes an offense or violation of public law of deeper and more atrocious nature, a public wrong or violation of the commands of God, and the offense of any law made to preserve the public rights, as treason, murder, robbery, theft, arson, etc. The minor wrongs committed against individuals or private rights are denominated trespasses. And the minor wrongs against public rights are called misdemeanors. Crimes and misdemeanors are punishable by indictment, information, or public prosecution. Trespass or private injuries at the suit of the individuals injured. But in many cases, an act is considered both as a public offense and a trespass, and is punishable both by the public and individual injured. Any great wickedness, inequity, wrong, and if we extend our search to include tort, we find, okay, here's what a tort is. Jerry's cool. He puts everything out there for me. Tort is a noun. In law, wrong or injury. Torts are injuries done to the person or property of another, a trespass, assault, battery, defamation, and the like. Now, within the Constitution, we find the following in reference to crime in Article 3, Section 2, Clause 3. The trial of all crimes except in class of impeachment shall be by jury, and such trial shall be held within the state where the said crime shall have been committed, but when not committed within any state, the trial shall be at such a place or places as the Congress may by law have described or directed. As I read the above description and in portions of the Constitution, you might note that committed, act, wrong, injury, and offense are used to denote that which is considered as crime. Yep, that's it. An action must be taken. It must be committed. Conjecture is not used even once describing what a crime is. Let's suppose your neighbor sneaks over at night and chops down your rose bush. You know he did it, but you can't prove it. You talk this over with a friend and discuss what you can do to stop it. You agree that force is the most productive form of reason and that strong steps should be taken. Based upon this decision, you expound even further on what to do. Based upon that meeting, you go to the gun store, get a rifle, and intend to use it on your neighbor if he chops down another rose bush. Of course, this thought goes through your mind, and yet you haven't even taken any action. Thought they are, to this point, legal actions to prepare for an illegal one. The one evening you catch him chopping down your rose bush, you grab your rifle with the intent of blowing his brains out. You point the rifle at him, and then your conscience takes over, and you order him to remain, and your wife calls the police. Well, you had the intent in you. You may have even voiced your intentions. You acted, you went to the scene, but at the last minute, you did not do the deed. Have you committed a crime? I don't think so. Now, in the present state of our country, people yell foul and treason in their condemnation of our government's actions regarding taxes, health care, war, executive orders, and all manner of evils, most of which are, without a doubt, violations of the Constitution as we perceive them. Well, treason and perhaps violations of their oath, when the consequences are as severe as the will be on... Whoa, wait a minute. I'm going to have to read this a little better, guys. Let's see. Treason and violation of their oaths. When the consequences are as severe as... will be on our prosperity are without a doubt crimes that we as jurors might perceive as attaining the necessary of capital punishment. Yet we simply yell out and shout. However, when a group of people plans for an eventuality that we all see as well within the range of possibility, we are quick to side with that government, regardless of whether a real crime has been committed, or for that matter, even planned, as the government suggests. Oh boy. Hey, you know what? There are people on the board, and I'm going to see who's there. I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to talk to 714-331. Hello, 714-331. Hello. Buenos dias. Press 1 to speak English, man. Okay. I guess they don't want to talk. Well, let's try 76536. Oh, wait a minute. Something's coming through. Hello.
Sorry.
Are you there?
Sorry, this is Bill DiGirolamo. Sorry about that. I had my phone muted, and I was in a different program, and it wouldn't let me unmute until I exited and came back. So, sorry about that.
Okie doke. No problem, Bill. What's up?
Well, I just wanted to let you know that I'm here to kind of support you today in your show, and I think David might also be on the line. I'm not sure.
Is he a 765 number? Let me see who this is. We'll bring him on, too. 765, you're in the room.
Yep, that's me.
Well, we got Bill and Dave.
Yeah.
It's the Bill and Dave Open Road Show. Anyway, what you guys got to say, bud?
Well, someone had called me here a while back ago to ask me to look at Casey's case, and what they didn't tell me was that he had been coerced by the judge to make the plea. And had I been told that then, I would have been able to tell them that because of the coercion, which is a felony by the judge, it nullifies the plea.
Wow. So how do you tell a judge he's committed a felony?
Well, I mean, one of the things that people need to be doing if they want to really show some support is get off their keister, get down there to the FBI office, and press charges on this judge for operating under the color of law. Because the statute...
So, I mean, anybody can do that?
Yes.
Anybody can go down and file charges on Judge Hanen for
if they know that judge operated under color of law, they can go file charges.
So anybody can do that. So anybody that's got knowledge of it right now can run down there to the Brownsville courthouse and file charges against Judge Hanen for that.
Well, they'll want to go to the FBI office, not to the courthouse.
You go to the FBI office. You think they give you the horse laugh all the way out there? I'm not trying to be facetious or anything, but I mean, you go into the FBI office and you say, I want to press a felony charge on a federal judge.
Well, I already did that.
How does that work? No shit.
They don't like it. I mean, I've already done it. I already pressed charges on 3 judges, 2 prosecutors, and a sheriff for capital felony treason under Title 18, Section 2381.
No kidding. How did that turn out, man?
Well, basically, I'm going to have to take it on up to the next court in D.C. because they're trying to keep it from going on the record here.
Oh. But it puts them in a position where...
That's right. Okay, so it hadn't been adjudicated yet, so you really can't talk about it, but you did follow through with it.
Oh, yeah.
Dig it. So anybody that knows or was in the courtroom that day when Casey made that pleading and witnessed the judge tell him that he had to and that kind of stuff, by the judge telling him that he had to plead right then, that was a felony?
Yes, that's called coercion. I gave Bill the laws on it so that he could send them to all you guys and say, hey, this is what's happened, and it is against the law.
I didn't know there was any such thing. Tell you the truth, man, I'm glad you said something. So anybody that is currently contemplating a protest down there of some sort in Casey's behalf, they could actually go, if they were in the courtroom that morning and saw that, could actually go and file that charge.
Oh yeah.
They can validate the complaint of whoever files that complaint that they're obligated to at least investigate. So it becomes part of a record.
Right. Now, the other side of this is, too, that people don't understand is they don't necessarily have to have witnessed the judge threatening him. They can file charges on him for operating under the color of law just because the statute which they applied to Casey was not allowed to be applied to the people. Because if you go read the statute, it says any person or persons. Okay, well, I've showed Bill plenty of court rulings, Supreme Court rulings, that shows that any time a statute says that, it's not to be applied to the people, it's for government officials.
Oh, so that becomes our whipping stick for an out-of-hand judge.
Right. That means that whenever he applies that statute, when he knows it doesn't apply to us, he's operated under color of law, and people can press charges on him for it.
So now that he has dismissed the motions, because they plainly pointed out in the motions that it didn't apply to him, when he dismissed that, he committed a felony? When he didn't dismiss those charges and he didn't grant those motions, he committed a felony?
Oh, yeah, because he went against the Supreme Court rulings that were already there.
Oh, man, my head is spinning and it ain't my blood pressure medicine.
There's law. There's law that says you can't go against that. They're bound
so anybody
to
that's listening... Wow, that really takes me aback that, we can see what happens tomorrow, and if he doesn't cut him loose or anything, or go back on his motions or anything, I guess that would be the people on Casey's behalf's next step, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I wouldn't, personally, if it was me, I wouldn't wait. I would go up first thing in the morning and just have everybody start filing charges. Send a clear message.
Huh.
Although it would be nice for a good number of people, especially in the local area in Texas, if they could actually be present at that court before it opens, so before the arrival of these judges and everybody else and staff in that building, so that they can see that there's at least a lot of attention on this. People are watching and are behind Casey. That would be a nice thing. You know, I'm here in Southern California and unable to make it there for tomorrow, but people who are close enough to do so, it would be nice. And then I suppose, like with what David is saying here, they can take themselves a short little trip to the FBI office from the court and do exactly what he suggested.
No,
do they have to go to the FBI office there, or can it? I mean, like if they're not in Brownsville or wherever, like say if they were in Waco or
go to the FBI
wherever.
office over the district. That's all they got to do. Go to the FBI office that's over that district. You know, and
Wow.
the bottom 9 yards here is, if people want their damn freedom back, they're going to have to get active and get off their butt.
Well, I agree. There's too many people sitting on the sideline pointing fingers.
You know, they can't sit there and wait on a bunch of people to fix it, so that they can stand up later and say, "Oh yeah, we done it. We took care of it."
Yeah, because at some point this judge is going to have to establish jurisdiction, and I think that now this doesn't serve justice because he should pay for the intrusion upon KC, but at least at some point he's more likely to want to dismiss it than get into the deep waters of everything else being exposed. And that would at least relieve Casey of having to be further burdened, unless, of course, the judge tries to attach restrictions to his life, at which point then you just have to go after the guy right off.
Wow.
I mean, I've got all kinds of legal writings that I can show you that you can look up everything I've written in them, and I'll guarantee you that you'll be able to back up and prove everything I've said in those legal writings.
Fantastic. So it would behoove people to, if you'll send those over, I'll see if I can't disseminate them.
What David is saying is that he can guarantee you that what he's saying is valid. What nobody can guarantee is that the court will show any honor or even regard for the rules that they're established to even abide by themselves, which are restrictive compared to the freedoms that we actually have. That's why he's talking about the person or the persons. You know, we the people sit above a whole level that they are obligated to serve and fall under. You know, that we're not obliged to follow the Constitution as we the people. Those servants absolutely are. That Constitution protects us from them a whole level below us.
The Constitution was meant to be a fence. It was meant to be wall that kept them inside a certain realm. First of all, the state's not even allowed to bring charges on you. And we've gotten away from all this because people got lazy about knowing the things that they should know. I mean, I can show you that unless you hold your house and use it as a business, you're not supposed to be paying property tax.
Supposed to be, right.
Okay, but what they've done is they went and deceived everybody by playing with words.
So if you're not running a business out of your house, you don't have to pay property tax.
No, it's private property.
You're not supposed to.
It's private property at that point. But what they've done is they've went and played with words, and they've used words like residential. Well, when you're using a word like residential or resident, and I've showed this to everybody who looks at my papers, the definition for resident is someone who lives in that state for at least 183 days out of the year, but holds legal residence in another state. And it's that way in every state.
So it would have to be for it to be a federation. So,
right.
Wow. This is pretty amazing. I didn't know that we could go and file on Judge Hanen, a felony on him for his ruling on KC.
He may be a man and he may have immunity. He may have immunity as a judge, but he don't have immunity as a man for what he does wrong. Now, does he?
So his office doesn't protect him from the other side of the coin?
No. I've got 3 or 4 different rulings of United States Supreme Court rulings of case law that says when they violate federal law, that they cease to operate in the office and they no longer have immunity.
Wow. That's amazing, and I hope that people that are listening take heed and go on down there and do that. I'll make sure that I can get a note to Christy and let her know that they can do that while they're there.
I've got all this stuff posted on my Facebook. If people want to go to my Facebook, just go look up David Roach, look for the guy sitting there in the black cowboy hat and the white dress shirt. And that's my page. Everything is up there. All my legal writings are able to be downloaded. I've got a 36-page paper just on the name.
Fantastic.
Hey,
well, David,
let him know about those.
Go ahead.
The T2 documents that you can give him to look over for consideration for KC.
The T2 documents, they are a federal document, which is there for us, so that when they pull this kind of stuff, we can go in there and use that document to appoint that judge as trustee, so that he cannot act as trustee over our trust. Remember, everything was set up under a public trust. And that's what the all-caps name is. It's a public trust. We each got one share when we was born. And that birth certificate is the receipt for that share. But you go back when you turn 18 and you file it back onto the record with the state under an affidavit for age of majority, letting the state know that you have reached the age of majority and you're no longer a minor.
Even if it seems obvious otherwise.
Right.
Right.
Because when you hear these judges talk, what do you always hear them say? Most of the time when they come back and give their ruling, they're talking about the record. Well, if you never changed the record, and on the record you're still a minor, then when you walk into that court, you have no standing.
Because you're a minor.
Right. On the record, you're a minor.
So the first thing you have to do is file an affidavit of majority of years.
For age of majority. And then you would do an affidavit of domicile, which kills the straw man, takes him out of the public realm and makes him into nothing more than a trust for you to move in and out of commerce when you need to.
Which means into the lower courts.
Right. What this does now is
in that jurisdiction.
Because he's now a trust on the public record. Now, if that judge moves against the trust, he's just violated Title 15, subsection 1, and he's committing financial crimes, which then ends up going into Articles 43 and 46 of the Lieber Code, and he's committing acts of war against the American people.
Oh, holy shit. Oh, dang. Boy, I keep putting dollars in that swear jar.
They wanted to create all this law crafting. They just never expected us to decide from time to time to play it as well. And here's the consequence. All the consequences are ours unless we exercise them as well.
Wow. That's getting to be my favorite word today is wow. So this is kind of hard for a mental defective like me to follow. The first thing you do is you go and you file an affidavit of majority of years or attainment of majority, however that was stated. But all these papers, all this paperwork and everything is on your Facebook page.
Oh yeah. I put it all into downloadable links, both on my Facebook page and if you go to the Turn Up the Heat on Your Freedom event that we have going on right now. All
that's
that
also on
there,
Facebook.
Along with the stuff for you to download so you can see how your property isn't taxable. And then you can go and write up an affidavit and go down there to the land office and have them change the listing of your property to private instead of residential or agriculture or whatever they've got it under, so that you no longer have to pay the property tax.
Oh, I'm going to run down there and do that tomorrow. Hey, I've got somebody else holding their hand up. It's a 254 number. Let me bring them on and see what they've got to say. Hang on a second, guys. This is getting really cool. 254, brought you on the board. Hello. 254-290.
Yes, me. I'm sorry. I was off a little bit and everything. I heard a comment just now about the property tax. What state are we dealing with?
Indiana.
Okay, that's good because I was worried about Texas. We're trying to raise our homestead exemption down here to where it originally was, where if you're living in your home instead, you don't have to pay any taxes. It's only an investment.
I've got their own statute from that says that that if you do not have the property using it for a commercial use, it is not taxable.
For Texas?
No, this is for Indiana. But if we go to ruleoflawradio.com, you can look up the statutes for Texas, and you can find the one there for that one.
Yeah, I intend to do that. Like I said, we're fighting right now to try to just get around that because we completely disagree with property taxes. You basically rent your house after you pay for it. You still have to rent it from the government. For a long time, it's kind of a recent thing in Texas. We didn't really take people's houses for taxes. We would let the bill add up, and when the people died, then they sold the house or the heirs sold the house, and they take the taxes out of the sale. But this idea of throwing people off their land for taxes is relatively new to Texas. We're still trying to get used to that.
Well, that was never allowed. That was never, ever allowed. And I've got all kinds of court rulings that prove it. What's happened is people didn't go and read the law and know the law, so they ended up registering their property as though it was a business.
Right.
Instead of as private property.
So these title companies that we deal with when we do a house closing, they're just perpetuating that lie.
Well, most of them don't even know. They've never went and read it. Now, I personally think they should have been made to read it because they're the ones that's supposed to be setting this stuff up, but they are not made to read it. They do not know what the law is.
Well, that's after today's Supreme Court ruling. That's dangerous.
What happened today?
Well, there's an 8-1 ruling saying that if an officer is just ignorant of the Fourth Amendment, is ignorant of the law, doesn't understand it, and he does a search and saying, well, the search is okay, it's totally legal, the Fourth Amendment does apply because the officer didn't understand.
Null and void.
Oh, hell no.
Oh, actually, I know the ruling you're talking about, and that people are misunderstanding what was said. What the court had actually said, they held with a long time thing that had been this way, was that if it was in plain sight, whether or not he had made an error, it was okay.
Well, that's not so bad. I read,
And because that's what had happened. The instance in which the guy got pulled over, and because he had a tail light out, and the officer didn't realize it wasn't against the law as long as he had one working. And what had happened was the officer walked up, and the guy had dope laying on the seat.
Oh man,
at least he didn't have a bunch of heads in his dashboard.
A few years ago, I got my iPad stolen by a crack dealer. My son stole it and sold it to him for crack. And I tell up one of my rules of things you never do. If you got a trunk loaded full of crack and a stolen iPad in the front seat, you do not run out of gasoline in the police parking lot.
Yeah.
Now we just need a bunch of guys to call in from the Appalachians.
Yeah, that's one of those. That's one of those rumors on that's going around that I would like for people to be dispelling, because when people get bad information and they go out there and they do something stupid as a result, you know what I'm saying?
You know, that's what happens. This whole Jade Helm thing down here in Texas, when I first heard it, I'm out here near Fort Hood, I routinely hear machine gun fire. I routinely see gunships fly over, practice runs, and things like that. I've seen maneuvers for years, and I didn't take all that serious, but I thought with all the mania going on, maybe I missed something. Maybe maybe this is an armed invasion of Texas. Maybe I'm just dumb.
Well,
and then a friend of mine, Chris Lee,
I have issues with that because they have soldiers there who are practicing who are not National Guard. And only the National Guard can operate on American soil.
Yeah,
like that.
Well, see, they've been doing that for years. In fact, I brought up something yesterday in a show. People said, oh, no, years ago, I asked them, where do you think the Saudis learned to fly the fighter jets? Oh, well, we don't know. Well, we learned it at Central Texas College right over here about 5 miles from here, where they took Saudi princes who couldn't fly a kite and got them through school and they could fly a jet. We did that all the time. You know, it's not right.
Well, they used to do that in Hurst, Texas, at Bell Helicopter. They did the same thing. They built them.
But let's to get back on topic. Anytime any officer or anyone operates under color of law and applies a statute illegally, everybody has the right to go down there and file charges on him.
Wow. So, to get this straight, you have to go down there to the FBI office in the Brownsville area to file a charge. Okay.
And,
so for folks that are already there today and tomorrow, for Casey's court and that, hopefully there's going to be some folks down there, and they can go on over to the FBI office and file the charges against the judge for acting under the color of law. That would be a hefty wake-up call, I would call it.
And this needs to start happening all over, because as long as there's just one guy like me who's willing to go down and file charges, but nobody else, they're just going to kind of look at it and say, but when you start getting 10, 15 people, maybe 20 people filing complaints, they're going to have to do something.
Wow. Yeah, I agree. Well, it's like the driver's license thing, you don't really need a driver's license.
I've got a 28-page paper on that, bud.
No, it's working, by the way. The traveler rather than the driver, and it is working.
Absolutely. I've heard about that since I was a kid, and had never seen it actually help or work for anybody yet. But I'm hoping to see that as an old man coming to be.
Part of the problem of why it's not working is because people aren't going to the right place to get the proper plate. And if you listen to that show that I did with Anthony Williams that Renee has posted, there you can go to the tax assessor's office at the courthouse, and they have a deal where you can go and get the right plate for your car. There's paperwork you got to fill out and all that. Now, they may not even realize it at this point because it's been so long since people's done it.
So there's actually a plate for your car. That's already in existence.
Yes, there's actually a plate for travelers where you don't register your car. The plate gets registered to you, and you just move it to whatever car you're driving. And all you do is record the car as you owning it. Yeah, I can show you that you don't even have to pay income tax.
So do you have to have the car title has to be free and clear? You can't have anything owed on it or anything like that? Or can it be, like everybody's car, they've got a finance payment on it?
Well, what matters about whether or not it's private property is whether or not you're using it in commerce.
Right.
Okay, see, all this stuff...
So if you're not using it in commerce...
Right. All of these
I think what he's asking, David, is if you have a commerce agreement with a car rental agency or with a finance company, and you have a contract with them, a commerce contract in purchase, are you required then, because of the contract, to have a license and abide by the registration, or
No,
is that what you're getting at, James?
No, because you're not actually using the vehicle in commerce. You just done commerce to get the vehicle, or to get the automobile, I should say. Because they've got two different definitions for what a motor vehicle is and an automobile. And the definition for motor vehicle, you'll find that at Title 18, Section 31 definitions.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, and so you go down to the tax office and okay, I'm in Texas, so I'm kind of curious. What would I ask for in Texas?
You would ask them, tell them that you need to get plates for a private automobile or a non-commercial automobile.
Not a motor vehicle, but an automobile. Not to drive, but to travel.
Right. The words matter immensely.
Oh yeah. Definitions matter tremendously, and that's how they've caught us by the short and curlies already, because we think it means one thing when actually it means something else.
Right.
And they stop teaching it in school, the difference, and then thereby creating a whole herd of people that don't know crap about what their everyday life actually is.
Well,
yeah, and it even changes the people in your car. They are no longer passengers; they're guests.
Yes.
Well, you get. I just went through something just today. My ex-wife's husband died about a month ago, and I'm the executor of the will. I called down to the county clerk. I say, what do I have to file to go ahead and probate this will? Oh, we don't have anything. You have to see a lawyer. So we went around. Finally, I got down there. I said, look, there's a courthouse here. Now, I'm the executor, and I've got the will, and I want to probate this will. Well, come to find out, they didn't even know that there was a form that you simply file saying, okay, we're going to probate this will. And I said, if I was a lawyer and I came down here, what would I get? Well, it'd be this, but you got to be a lawyer. Well, where does that say that? Well, it don't. Okay, it's filed.
Right.
Yeah, but they sit there and they get all, they get all bent nose about it, and everything, and they really don't know half of what's going on. And you tell them, well, it's in your little file cabinet. If I was a lawyer, what would you hand me? Oh, well, I would hand you this, but you got to be a lawyer. Where does it say that?
Well,
it don't say that.
First of all, there's a big difference between an attorney and a lawyer.
Yep.
Oh boy, back to definitions.
A lawyer,
cool, I'm going to like this one.
The definition for a lawyer is one who's learned in the law. An attorney he's more like the guy that you go to operate all through commerce. And there's
a squire.
Right. And there's a whole lot of things that people need to learn about: bid bonds, replevin bonds, and performance bonds.
Yeah. In construction, we had P&P bonds.
Well, these are the bonds that have to be taken out by every prosecutor when he files a case.
Really?
I've got court cases that says that if there isn't a actual one of the people there making charges, the case has to be dismissed. Government agents are not allowed to bring the charges.
So a government agent couldn't even brought the charge against KC. It had to be a person.
How did KC harm him?
It had to be one of the people, not a person.
Right. Right. The law is very clear. Okay, that you have to.
So why is my buddy in jail? This is friggin' ridiculous. Why is my buddy in jail? Why is he sitting down there right now sweating his ass off, wondering if he's going to get out tomorrow? Jeez, how blind are we?
Very. When you start reading my papers, you will understand just how uninformed you are.
Give everybody your name again so we can get that out on Facebook. So, I mean, people that are listening, I have no idea how many there are or what, but from what I understand, this thing is tweeted, retweeted, or broadcast, rebroadcast, and all kinds of weird things. Let's have your name and your Facebook page again, and hopefully it won't get taken down.
My Facebook page is under my name. It's just David Roach.
David Roach.
R-O-A-C-H, just like the critter.
Gotcha.
He has a black cowboy hat and a white dress shirt, and he's just standing there simply, looking right at you.
Okay, folks, you heard that. Go and check out that Facebook page, download those documents, and get busy. If everybody in Texas went and filed those papers about the taxes, that was a buddy of mine's biggest thing. He had a granite and import export and everything like that, and he had these big huge house out there at Colleyville, and he said my taxes are killing me. It's ridiculous. I'm going to move to Alaska because there's no property tax up there, and wow, and there's not actually any here if you're not doing commerce out of your home.
Right.
That's
That.
amazing.
If you look up income, okay, for the income tax, the definition for income is corporate gains. So if you don't have corporate gains, you don't have income.
Oh, that's a head twister.
Okay, I've not paid the IRS for 12 years.
Yeah, and I got a lot more time than that under my belt.
I'm still walking free. I've dealt with them twice. Both times I gave them the report that I have on the income tax report. Okay, they read it, they hand it back to me, and they say, "Have a good day, sir," and they walk away.
That's not to say they won't hassle other people that you may choose to work with, but they won't be able to come after you, and they know it. And the people that you're working for, usually if they submit or try to give your income to them, they do it on a notice of a lien. And there's a big difference between a notice of a lien and a lien. One is simply a notice and the other is a lien, but they never do it under an actual lien.
Right. You're not supposed to be filling out W-2s or W-4s, any of that garbage.
Right.
Okay. But so many people don't go and read the law for themselves. They don't know. So they fill them out.
And that's how they're getting into our hip pockets, because you can't go and you can't get gainful employment without filling out a W-2 or a W-4.
Right,
the
because
won't
you've acquiesced. But if you go to line 7 on the form that you're filling out, there's a spot there to mark if you're exempt.
You just mark exempt.
Yeah, you can mark exempt.
Oh boy!
I
know I've got a couple of friends that are fixing. I've got a couple of friends that are fixing to go and mark theirs exempt. That's good.
I mean,
I'm going to even tell the people
want to starve this oversized government. The quickest way to do it: stop paying property tax, stop paying the income tax, because all these taxes are supposed to be paid by the corporations. The corporations were supposed to exist for our benefit. And now the roles have been completely reversed through a bunch of talk. And the corporations aren't paying the taxes, and we are.
Yeah.
Well, if you can shift that burden, shift it, baby. And they sure did. They didn't have a problem with it either. And it looks like we're going to have a little bit of fun giving them the problem back.
I mean, I have no qualms with it. I mean, some of these people think I'm crazy because I've been willing to be arrested 77 times fighting.
Ouch. 77 times?
Yeah.
A hell of a rap sheet.
77 arrests, 6 convictions, so I'm not doing too bad.
It's what
that
happens
seems like
when
a winning score to me.
It's what happens when a few people stand up and the rest of everybody else looks the other way. If everybody stands up to do this, there's a resolve that will occur.
Oh yeah.
A tipping point. We're only having to play this game as long as it's allowed on the table. At some point, I've always figured that there's a tipping point to where they say, okay, it's a facade. Yeah, we've been playing it all along, but we're taking over your country. At that point, then, it's just the remedy of restoring the constitutional republic. But until then, this can free you up from a lot of other burdens, especially financially, to allow us the freedom to stand for ourselves.
I mean, how many people go and read congressional records?
Nobody I know.
Oh, well, you're talking to
As
one
a matter
right
of fact, I don't, if it wasn't for for our state, for my elected official, old Cruz up there, I don't think anybody's reading them. And I'm just glad that he's holding true to his point and reading them. But we won't get off into the Cruz thing. I hope he gets the presidency, but I don't know if he will or not.
First of all, if people go look at the Lawyers Guild report from the 81st Congress in 1950, they're going to find out that the Bar Association was deemed a communist organization because they was caught shipping ammunition to Adolf Hitler during World War II, and they was also caught attacking the American public school system in order to dumb down the children.
Well, I believe that. I mean, I don't even have to read that, and I believe that. I mean, look at the crap that our educational system's in right now. I mean, Common Core. Are you kidding me?
Oh yeah, that's and what gets me is I'm actually seeing some people who are standing up for the Common Core, and I'm going, "Are you kidding me?" I mean,
yeah.
These kids
How
today,
can you back that?
Oh, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm looking at some of these kids today, and I've talked to 5 or 6 kids who had just graduated school, and they didn't know what the Constitution was. Had not been taught about it.
Well, the other thing that they're being taught, I know this from a few years ago, from a university graduate student, which means that they've been in the system for at least, through 4 grades of college after high school, and their consideration of a sovereign, as they recognize it and were educated to believe, is the government. We're the subjects and the government's the only sovereign. Which, again, there's that 180-degree flip from the founding of, what we were granted this republic. Even still the national government being federal, in other words, the conversion to federal made it a feudal system, which is 180 degrees opposite of what the national government was really supposed to be.
Well, and people need to understand that they are not a U.S. citizen.
Right.
A U.S. citizen is a government employee. A person is a corporation or a government employee. Okay? There is a whole host of things that people do not know. The jurisdiction for the U.S. is that 10-mile area known as the District of Columbia. Everything else is America. Now, unless it's on an Army base where they bought land from us, it's not U.S. territory.
It's America, baby.
So there's no reason that KC should be sitting in jail right now, and from what you're telling me, that seeing as how Judge Hanen, as stalwart as he might have seemed, just committed a felony.
Oh, yeah. He also violated the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. If you go to the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, read it.
Yeah, it would have been nice also if the sheriff, the county, and the state of Texas would have stepped up like they're actually entitled to do and said, no, you will not proceed with this.
Guys, I don't care what state you're in, okay? If anybody believes that these state officials are not acting in tandem with this government, they are way off the point.
Right.
They're being duped.
Oh, no, I see it. I see them in lockstep with it to keep the status quo, and as a matter of fact, to take even more than what they've got, which they shouldn't have in the first place.
Okay. How many of the people understand that we the people used to have grand juries in every single county?
Yep.
Okay, the grand jury used to go in and inspect the courthouse once a month, and if the courthouse needed cleaning, they told the judge to clean it.
Or have it cleaned, yeah.
Oh, no, I have it cleaned because we wouldn't allow them to spend money to clean up what they were supposed to be taking care of. They had to go in themselves. They had to get the broom, they had to get the mop, and they had to get off their butt and get out from behind that bench and actually do something.
Well, see, most of us are old enough also to have experienced some common law in practice when we were children. From the common law marriage to an assortment of many things. And it's hardly even understood what common law even is, or that it's a valid thing when it's the supreme thing. It's amazing.
Well, in Oklahoma, when I was a kid, I was always told if I was out at a gal's house, do not turn all the lights out, because if you did and you stayed there all night with no lights on in that house, you were common law married, whether you liked it or not. And my grandfather was not BSing me when he told me that, and from that time on, I never went anywhere that I didn't make sure that at least one light on in the house, because I didn't want to get trapped off in anything while I was young and stupid. Come to find out, I'm old and stupid. But
well, and in California, it was that you had to reside for 7 years under the same roof.
Right, and that's the way it used to be here too. But I mean, there's been a whole host of things done that people don't understand. You don't have to go apply for a marriage license. You don't have to go get a license to go fishing.
Right.
Oh.
All this stuff. I dealt with a game warden here back 2 summers ago. I was fishing without a license. And he come down there talking to me, and I laid everything out for him, explained it to him, showed him what was what, and explained to him that if he wanted to arrest me, that was fine. He could go ahead and do that, but I wasn't going to sign no papers. And then when I got out, that I was going to be down there pressing charges on him for acting under color of law, and that he may have immunity as the office, but as the man who stepped outside of that office, he don't have no immunity, and I'll be coming for his wife's wedding ring.
Because at that point, an actual crime occurs.
Right.
Instead of some statute that they're trying to harbor funds through.
Okay, if you go to Chisholm versus Georgia, in Chisholm versus Georgia, they said that only the common law could be applied to the people.
To the people, yes.
And then if you go to Penn Hollow versus Doan's administrators, they point blank said that they were foreclosed on from obtaining parity with us.
Okay, explain that.
Okay, parity is contract.
Okay.
Okay, and because that's what they're doing. They're bringing you in there. They're getting all guff with you. They're talking big and bad, and they're saying, "Well, you're going to do this, or I'm going to charge you with contempt of court." Well, that's coercion because you've not done a contempt of court. The judge is just doing it to try and make you do what he wants. Because if the judge can't get you convicted of the crime, which they're committing the felonies because these bonds that they got to file aren't in the case record, you're supposed to know those bonds are there and see them. And what they're doing is they file these charges, these bogus charges that they know don't apply to you to start with, and then they're supposed to be bringing the regulations for how that statute is to be applied. The statute by itself is not a law. It has to have the accompanying regulations to become law, because the regulations tell you who it applies to, who it can be applied to, and how it can be applied.
Right, and that was, I keep going back to the thing with KC down there, and none of that applied to him. Whenever he got arrested for felon in possession, and that, all of us, me included, went, oh crap. There's,
sorry about that.
They really don't have any way to do that, but they did, and now they're, he's sitting in jail down there, and they filed charges on him that don't apply to him, and now I find out from you that at the same time people can go down there, and because the judge did what he did, and he didn't grant those motions, and went ahead with proceeding with it after he knew that they didn't apply to him, that he committed a felony.
I also, James, did they come on to private property to take and commit this, or did they draw you guys off of private property in order to do that? And if so, David, does that make any additional difference, or what?
Well, it depends on how the property is listed and what was posted. Because if it's not like my property where it's showing zip code exempt under DMM 602, and I've got the sign posted letting them know that there's a fine in order for them to step on my property, then they can easily walk on there because as long as it's under the zip code, it's within U.S. jurisdiction. Now, once you remove it from the zip code under DMM 602, it becomes a non-domestic property, a non-domestic mailing address, and it's outside of U.S. jurisdiction.
That process is also on his Facebook page, James, and it's an accompaniment, to what he was mentioning regarding the status of your property for property taxes. Is that you would move it off of the zip code registry and put it into postal codes or zones. Is that how it would work out, David?
You're just taking it out of U.S. jurisdiction and putting it in the American jurisdiction.
Right.
So that they don't have the authority to just walk on your property whenever they want. This way, if they want to come do something, they've got to have a common law warrant that has been decided upon by a jury of 25 people saying you've done something wrong and you caused harm to another one of the people.
Well, I'm definitely going to tell some folks, especially Christy, about that. I'm sure that she'll be thrilled to know that she can go and file that, and
and
they can't come on that property.
They do it post.
Hey, what time is Casey's appointment tomorrow with the judge?
As far as I know, it's 10 o'clock. That could get changed. I think one time it was scheduled to be at 10, and they didn't get out until 3. But as far as I know, it's 10 o'clock.
And that particular courthouse opens at 8?
I would guess.
You want to see a judge get nervous? Pack that courthouse, standing room only, and have a bunch of people in there standing there with legal pads and pens, and I don't care if all they're doing is putting scribbly lines on the paper. That judge is going to look out there and he's going to ask what everybody's doing. Just say, oh, well, we're documenting your crimes.
Oh, boy.
Plus, everybody who can't get into that particular courtroom being around the building outside.
Yeah.
That would be
a
they
were real
gift
particular about who they would let in there. They were real particular.
They don't have a choice. That's supposed to be a public courthouse.
Yeah.
Okay, they're committing a crime right there just by keeping the people from their courthouse.
Yeah, the first time he went down there, they had snipers on the roofs and all kinds of stuff. So
the first time you went down there, they did what?
Oh, there were snipers on the roofs and everything else down there.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah.
They had, there was armed guards out in front. In full battle rattle, and that. In case he was joking, he's standing up there talking to one. He says, "Man, let me get behind you in case the shooting starts, because you got body armor on. I ain't got nothing. I'm naked." He says, "Man, I don't get paid that much." It's your job, dude.
One of the ways to solve that stuff is because each and every one of them is acting under the color of law. Just walk right down the line with a notebook, get their names, badge number, and get a business card from each and every one of them. And being they all want to act under the color of law, go file charges on each and every one.
Damn.
I
cannot imagine. No, we're not going to stop it unless people start doing exactly what you're talking about. And I don't know how to get people goaded into going and doing anything like that, because the first thing they're going to think is, well, if I go do that, then they're going to come after me. Well, yeah, they are.
Well, here's
but they're coming after you anyway, Bubba.
They're coming after you anyway. They're going to keep coming after everybody for everything anyway.
Right,
yes,
and here's what they better be looking at. If they don't want it to get like New York is, where they're already arresting people just for having their legs spread too far apart on the subway while they ride the subway.
Oh, for Pete's sake. Yeah, man spread. Hey, you can't man spread. That's against the law. What?
Right, yeah.
Dude,
okay, now,
what is this man spread stuff anyway? Oh, well, yeah, I got my legs parted so I don't crush my testicles.
Right,
So...
But that's about 9 yards. If they don't want that going everywhere, they need to get off their butt.
Well, that being said,
They can either sit still and wait for everything to go completely 100% communist, or they can get off their ass. It's that simple.
Yeah. Or we can just sit back and without even having to worry about going so far as having to surrender, we'll just be overthrown and defeated.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it feels like right now. Everybody's just sitting back going, well, it's happening to other people. It's not happening to me, and they must have done something, because otherwise they wouldn't be after them for anything. They had to have done something for the government to be on their butts. And in Casey's situation down there, he was down there stopping an illegal invasion. And it wasn't just him by himself, and everybody makes it sound like that, but it wasn't. There was people rotating in and out of Camp Lone Star down there every 2 weeks, if not every week, from every part of the U.S. and then going from there, going back home and telling people what they actually saw there. And
right.
I think that's what made him really nervous, is that the lie was being not only videotaped and put out, but it was going back through a lot of credible people that have come down here to see it firsthand and to know that the Border Patrol has been bound and gagged, and that they have been told not to do this, not to do that, not to do their job, to back up off the river, to go back up onto the levee, and, oh, by the way, you've only got 20 gallons per shift for all the vehicles to run. And when the guys down there at Lone Star got in and got busy, and they saw what was going on, the Border Patrol started going up the stripes, and they were putting money out of their own pockets into their vehicles so they could go and be active again. And to see that, and to see it go from that point of cooperation and everything else to the shooting there at Sable Palms, and yes, that was on private property. That all happened on private property. It was all, and another thing that they did, they, apparently they ran Casey's wants and warrants and stuff 30 minutes or something like that before he even got there. So there's a lot of stuff that doesn't jive, and it's coming out. It's in the record, and now to find out that the judge has actually acted under color of law, how have you say it, that he committed a felony himself by going forward with it, knowing right there with the facts and stuff right there in front of him that that the Commerce Clause didn't apply to him. But if he does that, then everybody else that's had the Commerce Clause applied to them, and they pled guilty. They pled guilty to a non-law that doesn't apply to them. So where does that leave the government, and where does that leave those persons? And then it comes back into everybody that's done that was a part of that crime also becomes culpable for that crime that they've committed, that they actually committed, like you said, under the color of law by actively participating in that sham down there of a shooting.
Well, I mean, stop and think about this. Not only is it color of law, but now because they've jailed him, and they did so under the threat of harm with a firearm, now lawfully they could also be charged with armed kidnapping.
Yep.
All this is, it's kick-ass speculation and everything else, and I'm sure that the laws are there just like you say they're there, but how the heck do we get something done about it? How many people have got to go down to that FBI office and file those complaints against the judge?
As many as we can get.
As many as we can get. I doubt. You know what? I hate to say this, but I don't think there's going to be one. I don't think there's going to be one person that goes into that FBI office down there and files that one charge. I don't think there will be one.
But now, since the FBI is federal, does it actually have to be only that district office? Can it actually be from anywhere within the continental United States? Because they are a federal body.
But see, it has to be filed down there where they're committing the crime.
Yeah.
I can't go here and file for them committing the crime there, It
Right.
has to be done by the people that's there in that state. And
they're in that jurisdiction, they're in that state, just like everything else we've that we've read about these laws.
Every one of these courts, I don't care whether it's a state court or whether it's a federal court, all the laws that are going before it are federal.
Yeah, the other thing too that people should consider when they look at this is that everybody involved with those courts, from the clerks all the way through, who are aware of these violations in colors, they should be considered as co-conspirators because they have an obligation to speak up against these particular types of actions. I know our court system has turned into one of those things where, well, if you don't present it, it won't be acted upon or it won't be addressed, it won't go on the record, this, that, and everything else. But if they see something as absolutely wrong, they're obligated to speak up and stand up for it.
Well, and originally...
Well, you would think so, but every time I went to file something, they said, well, I'm not an attorney and I can't tell you what you need to file or what you need to sign. I find that just as disheartening as hell to go down there to the courthouse and try to get some, a little bit of guidance, point me in the right direction. What form do I need to file, for my vehicle to be just a transport, like you were talking about?
Well, they can act like one for that brief instant while they determine that they're considering you in contempt of something or another. And then they act upon it instantly thereafter as a judge by holding you for it.
Well, one of the quick ways to solve that issue is just remind them, say, you have a duty that's owed to the American people, right? And they're going to say, yeah. You're going to say, you realize and you understand that neither am I a person nor am I a U.S. citizen. I'm just one of the American people who you owe an allegiance to solve things. So if you're not going to help me with this as you're supposed to, then why don't you just point me to the direction I need to go get your bond?
Right.
Because once you have filed on that bond 3 times, that person's out of office.
Yeah, they lose that bond.
So you file on their bond.
Unbondable.
Right. Once you've expended a bond that's on somebody, now they're unbondable, and they can't go back into any type of government work because they're unbondable.
Well, that's interesting. And this is way interesting. I'm going to have to go to that page.
Yeah, that's our version of 3 strikes and you're out against these guys.
Okay, now the other side of it is somebody better be checking on this judge to see if his oath and bond are filed together and see if they're together. Because if they are not together and he's held office for more than 10 days, he is not a lawful sitting judge. Because if the bond and the oath are not attached to one another together on the record when you go check on him.
So they're not intact.
Right. Because his bond is not with his oath, and he didn't have it there within 10 days of taking office, he had already willingly vacated his office under the law, which means he was an imposter sitting there. He had no authority whatsoever under the law.
I can't imagine any judge not doing that.
Oh,
but
I can.
Then again,
I've already found over 20 of them doing it.
Yeah.
Huh.
Or they'll have their
well,
bond.
It might be fun just to go down to the
courthouse. Will never have their
oath of office. Where do you look for that?
It'll be under bonds and oaths. If you go to ruleoflawradio.com, you can find your state statute. That'll see exactly how that bond and that oath has to be filed, and there is an exact step by step that they have to do. If it's not filed that way, they're not sitting in their office lawfully. They have no authority.
I got a few down here. I
There's
want
me
to go
sitting there on that bench or them if they have not correctly filed that bond and oath.
Wow. Again, my favorite 3-letter word today. Wow. Well, damn, where do we go from here, guys? I have no idea. people are going to have to do something. We've got to do something. I'm hoping somebody down there in Brownsville will be listening to this, because I'm going to call a couple of folks that are supposed to be down there and let them know that they can go to the FBI office and file that, but they're gonna say, dude, are you friggin' nuts? I go to an FBI office to file a charge on a federal judge?
Well,
yep.
Are they...
Get the scared out of you and get after it. Get the scared out of you and get after it. This ain't for a week.
I don't know what happened to the American people, okay, but we used to. We didn't get scared. Okay, I'm still one of the ones who don't care. And, they may be able to lock me up, but they can't eat me.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
Driving down the street, James,
they've been putting fetuses in Pepsi.
Yeah. If you were driving down the street, James, and you were rear-ended by a judge who was drunk on his ass with a whole bottle of whiskey in his hand, would you look at him as a judge and be like, oh, man, we won't call the police. I'm not going to file any charges on you. Let's just go our separate ways?
Oh, absolutely. I'd be the first one to call the police. And you know what would happen? I'd be the one going to jail for getting in the judge's way.
Yeah. Well, and that's a lesser, it's a terrible thing and there's damage and all, but that's a lesser crime in my mind. It's a lesser violation than what this particular judge is doing to Casey and all these judges are doing to the rest of us, for the most part because we don't know any better, and because the attorneys that are representing us actually work for the prosecutor and the court that all these judges sit within in the first place.
You're not going to get an argument out of me about that.
There's a whole understanding here that people are missing. Okay, when you're dealing with law, like I told you, you got the statute and you've got the regs. Together they make the law. And the regulations tell you who it applies to and who it doesn't apply to and how it's supposed to be applied. Okay, and then the Constitution is the one above all of it, which limits whether or not that can be considered what's called positive law or negative law. And only positive law can be applied to the people. If it's deemed to be positive law, then they say it's in line with the Constitution.
Wow.
Okay, how many people know that clear back in 1998, child support was deemed unconstitutional?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Say what?
But
child support is unconstitutional.
Yes, I've got the rulings for it. It was already deemed unconstitutional, but they're still applying it to people illegally. It was deemed unconstitutional in 1998.
Responsibility for the kids, but yeah.
Well, but a man can have responsibility without the state sticking their nose in there.
That's the point. That's the whole point. It turns into CPS and all the rest of this stuff with all of these aggressive and egregious violations that we see today.
Well,
my dad was an LA County deputy sheriff. I grew up under him. And for part of his career, he worked on a child abuse task force. It was the hardest time of his life, and it almost destroyed my father. One of the only 2 times in my life I ever saw him cry was when he came home after a case one night. And the problem wasn't that child abusers had to be dealt with and such. It's just that they weren't actually. And now you have something like CPS that comes in, and they actually violate children and separate families for nothing, when the laws that were provided against the actual abuse of children were never really properly followed in the first place. So it's all of these things they say it's for the good of this and the good of that and the good of everything else. And all it is really is a statute system to collect money for this, that, and the other thing. And the other part of it is that they try to limit our actual rights after being prosecuted that are actually unalienable, and they're not entitled to do so, along with everything else.
Well, do you understand why CPS is getting jurisdiction to come in there?
No, I don't. I don't understand how they got that, to begin with.
Because when you had your children, when you had your offspring,
yes.
Okay, there was an affidavit, a government affidavit that was supposed to be offered to you to fill out. Okay, so that you could claim your child, so that you could claim your offspring. I don't want to use the word child because child in law is not what you think it is.
Okay.
It's not your kids. It's a child. The definition for child is that it is a fetus or stillborn.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
Okay, but anyway, this affidavit sets your child's nationality right then, and because you claimed them with the affidavit, they are actually yours. They are considered your property
until they're becoming of an adult.
Right. Now
and
they can't
that goes back to
property.
the majority of years that you were telling me about before.
Right. But see, they can't remove your property without it going before a jury.
And the grand jury and common law.
Right. Now, see,
so
what
you're talking
happens
about a
you don't fill that out.
Jury.
You don't fill that out because the nurses and that are paid to make sure you don't. Because you could, when you do that, it puts you into a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, even the whole process that you're talking about, where it would become attached to a record of live birth, is even bypassed altogether, and they go straight to a birth certificate, which is an altogether different document than a record of live birth.
Right. Yeah, you actually have three documents. You have the record of birth, you have the certificate of live birth, and then you have the birth certificate.
Okay, why is it so convoluted? Why is there three different certificates for one thing? Why would they do that?
Because one certificate represents the birth of a living child or your offspring. The other certificate is the certificate that represents your best way to put this. It represents the living man. Okay, when he grows up, that's your certificate of live birth that you're supposed to use to identify yourself. Okay, but we were, every place we went, they said, "Oh, I need your birth certificate." So what did we do? We handed them that certificate of live birth, which our name is in all caps on. Okay, that is your first. That is the warehouse receipt that was given to you so that you could come back and claim your share when you were ready. And that certificate is your legal person. That certificate is how you contract with other corporations, because the living man cannot contract with a corporation. He can only do it through a corporation. So you're given that incorporated legal person to use to go in and out. And this is why when people go to court, they have to stand up with that judge and say, "Your Honor, I'm here on that matter. I am not the person, but I have a person." So the judge immediately knows that you know that it isn't you they called to the court. That's why when you look at the court papers, you see your name's capitalized.
All capitalized.
Okay, it's because they cannot contract with the living man. They have to do it through your corporation. They have to get you to stand surety for the legal fiction that they created.
Oh, man, I wish I'd have started on this when I was 6 instead of 56. It would have been easier to understand by now.
I've been doing it for 20 years, and I'm telling you, I've only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Okay, there's over 10,000 statutes, codes, and regulations. There is no way no one person can know them all.
Well, that right there needs to. That shouldn't be at all either. I mean, how are you supposed to keep up with all that crud? That's a burden that nobody should be able to be put under.
Well, it's not even supposed to be part of our daily lives. These laws, these statutes, these admiralty, maritime contract laws aren't supposed to pertain to us on land anyway. Most of the corporation procedures, all of it doesn't belong on the land. All that's supposed to be out at sea or between nations. and within treaty, not within our daily lives, and not certainly ever to be allowed in our courts on the land. And that's one of the things that's going to boil down to what David's sharing are these loopholes that are laced throughout all of their little statutes, most of them put in place for their own advantage, but now that people are starting to discover them and use them against them, they have consequence also.
Right.
Now they try to get us to accept and agree with it.
I'm going to tell you something here that's going to absolutely blow your mind. Did you know that you was under a work order with the government?
Under consent within statute as a U.S.
No. There's an actual work order on you. There is an actual work order on you. We found this sheerly by accident when I was working with April to get her out of the system doing the paperwork. She actually got the printout that showed that she had a work order, and her work order was now canceled after she had done the paperwork.
Wow. So how does that? What is the work order, and how does it pertain to us? And what liabilities and benefits are attached to it?
Well, I mean, there is supposed to be an account that when we turn this stuff in and do these things that we're supposed to get access to.
Right, but how does it sit as a work order? That's what I guess the question is.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out how they get it set as a work order because we're never paid.
Right.
Okay. And I think that's why when you call their bluff on things like these traffic issues and things like that in the court, that they will move to the side and you can win your case when you bring everything right down.
Right.
I mean, you know, because they can't tell you about the work order.
Why not?
I mean, you know, if every American knew about it, you think they wouldn't be standing there looking at them saying, look, you're going to put me under a work order, you better be paying me.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, yeah.
Where's my check?
You want me to stand liable for all this stuff? By God, you better give me access to that account and you better be paying me.
Right.
So I never had filed
after all, we're the
affidavit
real
of years.
collateral against the value of our economy. You know, people talking about gold, silver, and all that other hogwash. The actual value of the economy is the people. It's the living, breathing people. The creators, right? The creators of goods and the utilizers of resources for prosperity are the people. And that's the real value. They'll create an instrument like gold and silver and say, this is worth something. It's an instrument. It's not real money. Real money is a utility, not an instrument. And Benjamin Franklin was one of the few people in the history of mankind utilizing money who actually knew the facts of this and gave it to the colonists for great prosperity when all of Europe was in the worst depression imaginable, which probably actually led to the American Revolution for occurring in the first place, because we weren't going to be subject to the crown and the limited amount of money that they put into the economy. He issued what was called colonial scrip, and he provided enough of it so that the colonists could have it to trade their services and purchase whatever they needed for themselves. And the value was based on our creativity.
Yeah. I mean, that's, you know, I don't care if you're trading seashells.
That's right.
You know, as long as everybody feels they have value, and as long as the people are productive, they will hold value.
Yeah, and then people try to attach it to all of these other things, and they say about money and all. Well, if you think about it, the money's counterfeit anyway. What is the difference except that we don't owe a debt to somebody and they don't own us through our economy, the instruments, which have been devalued 96% anyway. So not only is everything going up, we're taxed to hell. Well, yeah, true. But it's inflated. It's all been thefted. It's all gone. We don't need any of it. Mother Nature never sat back and said, let's wait for mankind to make a determination that something is valuable, and as soon as they trade hands, we'll provide the natural resources to produce it. It's never occurred.
Well, and the other thing people need to get to understand, okay, is these bankers who've got their hooks sunk into us.
Into KC right now as well, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah, they make their living by starting wars and then funding both sides.
Yeah.
That's where they get the majority of their money. by suckering you into sending your sons and daughters to die for them to make money.
Hey, James, back to something with KC really quick. I almost forgot to ask altogether because you were, well, as much attached at the hip as anybody could be with him down there in Lone Star, correct? For the most part.
Yeah.
And
I got down there
you guys,
3 days. Go ahead.
And aside from what you guys had going on, the other pretty successful, regularly recycled, people coming and going, serving a couple of weeks, going out, more people coming in to replace them. The other pretty successful group of citizen overseers, couldn't call them militia, they had to be citizen volunteers, was, besides Lone Star, was Laredo, correct?
Yes, as far as I know.
What you guys witnessed, and you were talking about for a while there, the increase in cooperation and how some of the actual Border Patrol people were relieved and starting to befriend you guys and getting involved themselves and looking at this as there might be some hope to the job that they signed on for. And more people were getting involved and more people were coming in to rotate and to serve with you guys. What you saw with all of this that happened is that all of that went away. There's a few scattered people here and there who may do some things, but for the most part, the whole movement and motion has been ceased.
Pretty much dead in its tracks. Lone Star was the only 24/7, 365 camp that it was operating. We only had like 3.5 miles of river that we had, and that with the properties and stuff that were adjacent to us, and that. But everybody else that I know of in other places, they would come in for 2 weeks. They would spend as much time as they possibly could at their AOs, areas of operation, and they would go home again. And that would open that area right back up to no one being there. Laredo,
you had 3.5 miles of river that you were responsible for, but you had 50 states worth of patriot people watching what you were doing.
Yep.
Now, here's the other side of it. The guys who
we didn't know that
camp,
at the time.
Thank you for that too, by the way, James. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it a lot.
Was it federal authorities who come in and arrested him?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
there was everybody in the alphabet soup. There was ATF, FBI, Homeland Security, Sheriff's Department.
Yeah, they have to bring the sheriff.
That were there.
Oh.
Yeah, I think there was a sheriff there at the hotel. I don't know. I wasn't there. I was at the camp at the time, and we were waiting on KC to get there. There was supposed to be some really great intel that was coming in from someone in the DPS, and that we were going to help him with, and then we kept waiting, and then we got a call from someone not even in the state that said, well, why aren't you guys down there bailing KC out? What are you talking about bailing him out? He's on the way to, no, he's not on the way to camp. He's been incarcerated.
Okay, well,
and
here's another issue.
That was how we found out.
Well, here's another issue, okay? These guys, because they were federal, unless the sheriff gave them permission to come in there, they didn't have a right to go in there and arrest anybody. They were outside of their jurisdiction.
Oh, that's clearly the case there.
Now, the other side of this is,
I mean, the sheriff's department and that would even file charges on him because he hadn't broken a Texas law.
That's right.
But see, the other side of it is,
he has not broken any law in Texas whatsoever.
You need to get a copy of that warrant because the warrant has to be signed by the judge and have the court seal stamped on the warrant.
Well, the funny thing about that warrant is it came out of Florida.
Oh, yeah. And I bet you, I'm just guessing right now, James, but I'll bet you it came after the fact.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter if it came after the fact anyway. What the hell's a Florida judge doing issuing a warrant for a Texas case?
Well, see,
I have no idea.
So my question was, because they're this federal body, they think they can act from anywhere, yet they'll limit us to which FBI office we could go in and file a complaint against their act from anywhere agencies.
Well, I mean, if they want to start acting from anywhere, I guess all of us need to just start acting from anywhere, and we need to start going down, find out who the judge was that signed the warrant, and everybody in all of our states will just go down and start filing the complaints for him acting under color of law.
Right? We're liable to get a lot more people filing something that way.
The officer that supported the warrant and that wasn't present and wasn't on site whenever the shooting took place and all that stuff. Wasn't there whenever the firearms and property was confiscated and taken and that. And he got it from somebody else that was there. He actually got it third hand and then swore to it, that's even
so he committed
more of this. Oh yeah, those guys down there perjured themselves up one side and down the other. That's why I don't understand they're not in jail. This is
pressing charges.
Did they confiscate your weapons too, James?
No, I wasn't even there. I didn't get there until 3 or 4 days later from when that incident happened.
And I would have told you guys that, first of all, when they started collecting your arms, that you should have protested and put it on the paper that you did not have a weapon, that what you was carrying was an arm.
Well, they didn't even do that. What happened was that KC and the guys, after the shooting and that, they backed off 50 or 75 or 100 yards from where the incident happened, and the mule is an open vehicle, and they had their arms on it, and the one of the Border Patrol captains down there said, "Look, let's get those locked up in the vehicle while we're going through this." So because they were still chasing illegals around down there, and it was still a hot zone, and they didn't want somebody coming up out of the brush grabbing their arms and turning them on them, so they locked them up inside of inside a vehicle. And from there it just kept progressing longer and longer. Casey he asked, "Can I go?" One officer tells him, "No, you can't go anywhere." And from there on, it went that whenever they left there, they took all that equipment with them.
Right.
And the guys were free to, the guys went back to camp. Everything went back to functioning in that, except with some hardware missing.
But the number one thing that the reason I say that is because a weapon denotes something that's illegal for you to possess by law.
Okay.
But the firearms are not.
Well,
so that's one of the things that
they had arms.
That's one of the reasons
they didn't have anything illegal. I know that for a fact. Well, I wasn't standing right there, so I don't know crap for a fact. What I do know is that what came back on the paperwork that of between the serial numbers of what they said they had and what they took and that, and even they had some of the descriptions wrong and the serial numbers were wrong. So how can that even be? That makes the whole piece of paper not any good anyway. But no, they just shut right on over all that stuff.
Makes it a fraudulent document as well.
Well, yeah, that's and if they admitted that as evidence in the court, now they've got a big issue because now they've filed a federal fraudulent document and they've committed a major crime.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking to, I can't remember who I was talking to about, who do we get to monitor these folks? Okay, who does it? Who does the overseeing in that? And now to come to find out when they're acting under color of law, that anybody can go and file with the at the FBI office that this happened. So that doesn't really say that they're going to do anything, but it says, okay, we've got to investigate this. And when you've got the guys investigating, when you got the wolf in the chicken coop inspecting the chickens, oh, that one's sick, I'm eating it. You know, I mean, there's no check and balance anymore.
Well, I know, but see, that's why we used to have the common law grand jury. The prosecutor, you know, they didn't control the grand jury. Okay, and if you go by law, no state or federal employee can sit on a grand jury or a jury.
Right.
Okay, they still do that, kind of.
Now, you know, this is one of the issues I have here too with these state courts. Okay, let's, you know, when you're talking about you're supposed to be getting a fair hearing, right? Well, if the state's bringing the charges illegally, and the judge represents the state, well, now the state's being both complainer and decider.
Yes.
Right.
The state, it's like with Casey, the state or the federal government is bringing the charges, and it's felon in possession during the commission of commerce, and that's not what it was.
Yeah, I'm a little curious as to why he didn't go for a jury of his peers.
I don't think he's had an opportunity to do that yet.
No, it hadn't even got that far yet. They don't even start picking a jury until I think it's the end of July.
Well, how did he?
They've been thoroughly violating him all along. They put an ankle bracelet and they limited his mobility and they subjected him to these ridiculous tests, urinalysis and everything else. They subjected him as if he were convicted already of crimes that he shouldn't have been arrested for.
Here's my thing though. How are they doing any of this when he has not yet been convicted?
That's amazing to me too. It's bothered me from the start. I told him when I talked to him how bad I thought that was happening. He's just kind of left alone right now, Dave, and it's sad.
It doesn't. They're not doing anything through law, and that they're ignoring the laws. They're imposing their will on someone when they have no jurisdiction. They're asking them to comply with something.
Yeah, they're painting a watercolor of law in the rain.
Exactly. That's a good analogy.
If the American people are not aware of what a police state we've become, let me give it to them in the numbers. The numbers say 1 out of every 8 people in America at some point in time now have gone to jail or will go to jail.
I believe that.
But how many of them for an actual crime? Almost none of them.
Right. Now, what I dealt with here, when we was actually talking to a prison guard, and we found out that our illustrious senators and congressmen here in Indiana had promised these private prisons 100% bed occupancy until 2020.
Yeah.
Now, how do you...
The number one corporate business in America right now is imprisonment.
Now, but here's my thing. I mean, do they have a crystal ball that the rest of us don't have? That they just know there's going to be that many criminals to fill a 3,500-bed prison?
Yes, they can assure it by creating enough statutes to guarantee it. And if they need more, they'll make more statutes.
Well, but the statutes don't apply to us anyway, so even the statutes don't do it.
Dude, it applies to you when you've got handcuffs on. They're applying it to you. And they're not using any Vaseline either.
Oh, no. They're applying it, but they're getting away with applying it because the people are not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, we don't know that.
They don't know what they're supposed to be doing because they haven't been taught what they were supposed to be doing since the 1920s.
Right.
Yeah, you know how many people are listening to this conversation? So many people are listening to this conversation and rolling their eyes, too. They don't want to hear it.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know it and understand it, so therefore it must be hogwash. I'm not so ill-informed. Hey, we all are. Even those who know much, like David, for example, he stated himself he's only scratching the surface But these law crafters have been around for a long time, and that is all they're about.
Okay,
they steal nations, and they have for hundreds of years.
Here's the part that the American people are going to have to get past, and they're going to have to swallow it and accept it, and then decide what they're going to do about it. Whose responsibility is it for us to educate ourselves?
Yep.
It's ours.
It's not somebody else.
It's our parents' obligation to educate our children.
Right.
To live in the world that they're going to have to deal with.
Okay. There's only so much your parents can teach you.
Absolutely. That's why we were sent to school.
You're going to have to learn by turning off the boob tube and sitting down and reading books.
And 9 out of 10 kids today are going to look at you and say, "What's a book?" They go to school. They get they don't have textbooks anymore. They've got pages that were copied out of a textbook, and they were handed the assignment pages that were pertinent to what they were asked, and that's what they have to take home. There's no. It's gotten completely ridiculous in the last in the last 10 years.
The books that the kids are getting in school are full of BS anyway. So.
Yep, they've been completely
there you go.
Revised or completely, they have entire chunks of our history removed.
Okay, and I don't care if you go read the congressional record, you're still not going to get a 100% accurate picture of our true history.
Or all the information, because they'll classify some of it.
Okay, under the law right now, even international law, under the law, we are not a nation. We are still a British colony. We did not win the war between us and Britain, like we've been taught.
Well, according to these courts that have superseded unlawfully the common law of the Republic, we've allowed them to wash over our shores with their fucking sea. We separated ourselves, and then we allowed the water to wash over the land again. We allowed it.
Well, the bankers put us into a position by playing with our markets to where we had to go to them for loans.
Right back to the Depression in the 30s. That was a contrived bunch of junk to begin with. And whenever they crashed it, people were too busy trying to put food on the table for their families to worry about much else.
Okay, first of all, if anybody understands anything about economics, here's the one most important thing they should understand. You cannot have a depression simply from the markets, the bond markets and the stock market collapsing. Okay, you cannot get a depression from that.
Yeah, especially when the beneficiaries are about 1% of the whole population. You can certainly affect the holdings of the 1%, but not the other 99% of the nation.
But see, what the banks do, this is what people don't understand. What happens, the way a depression comes about in the economic market, is they mess around with the stock market, they get it to drop real bad, and then they quietly start calling in loans and calling in money and withdrawing the money supply that's out there going around, and that's what causes the depression.
Well, that's how they convert their counterfeit paper into real property, and they start foreclosing and seizing real hard assets, real things in the world from their counterfeit.
Yeah, real property, not paper, it's real property. Real estate.
Think about the insanity of this, okay? Think about the insanity that these guys come up with some special designs that they printed on some paper and said, hey, this is money, and I'm going to loan it to you, but you got to pay me interest on it, and I'm not going to print that interest and put it into circulation so that you can never pay off the entire debt, because I want you to have to come back and borrow more money in order to pay the interest, and then what you're going to owe in interest is going to double because that money ain't going to be printed either. And like big dummies, we all said, okay.
And we're going to lend out 1,000 times the original amount on top of that and consider that a loan against everybody's docket as well, and, of course, not enter any of that interest as well also.
Okay, because we can prove that they orchestrated the crash and everything that sent us into this mess, Ask yourself if your government really cared about you, why they're not going after them and suing them for the fraud they perpetrated to cancel out the debt.
Well, here's another good one for you that I just found out. That in World War II, China was in such a raw heap, and that through World War II, that they sold bonds to the United States and to Americans, and they never have repaid those bonds.
Right.
And then they collapsed.
They never had to do what?
They never paid the bonds back. China still owes us for World War II bonds that they forfeited on, and the amount is so great that our debt to them wouldn't even exist if they paid us what they owe us.
Well, now here's the other side of this that I bet nobody was ever taught. Did you know that there was Chinese who were sent over to Germany as laborers to fight with us against the Nazis?
Yeah, rather than Japan, who we saved them from at that particular time.
They were over there. They were carrying ammo boxes
China.
and all that stuff for our guys.
Yeah, that's good.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I believe it. Well, I mean, the Flying Tigers. What was Pappy Boyington doing? He was over, doing that deal over there. They were paid.
Maybe they promised them. Yeah, maybe they promised them that they could build a railroad after we destroyed Germany's.
But if you go look at the history, unless you start reading obscure things about it, you're never going to know that they was even involved. They're never mentioned.
Well, like the only thing I knew about it was, like I said, with Boyington, the Flying Tigers, and that, and whenever they did finally do the raid on Tokyo, when they launched off those aircraft carriers and flew, hit Japan, and then crashed over in China, that was the extent that I knew about it. And then you find out about Brother John Burgess and that, and what he did in China, and that, and it gets, you get to see a little bit of it, but they don't talk about it. You're absolutely right. They don't teach it. They don't tell about it.
No, the history that's taught is it doesn't even come close to being what has really happened over time.
They don't even teach about World War II in Japan. They don't teach students what Japan did in World War II. That's a fact. I thought that was
like in the world. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Well, what I was going to say is, if you're involved in world history, especially conquest, the one reoccurring theme that always occurs is that, and especially like the best example here would be Spain, with all of these populations that they overthrew. One of the first things that they did is erase their history. And all throughout Europe is when one country would be conquered, they would rewrite their history. They'd erase it and rewrite it. Here we are living in America, and our history is being rewritten before our eyes. That should put people on notice. They are considering that their conquest may already be complete and secure. I profess that what we are experiencing today is actually a coup d'etat, and it's in the late stages of the game. Now, these things with court and everything, they're valid, and we should exercise them, but I think that we should do so with the vigor that a bigger fight is ahead of us, and that we're actually experiencing a coup d'etat, and it is in the late stages. And especially when you see what these guys are agreeing to fast track with TP, the Pacific trade.
TPP?
The TPP,
no, dude.
the Trans-Pacific
they better not.
That's a treaty of basically that surrenders, concedes our entire America to a global body, not just America as this republic, but America through to its root core, all of our resources and our people. That basically says that, yay, the world order has finally occurred. There's now a global governance, and we and you are of us. It's basically,
and we own you.
Treaty of surrender. It basically signed us into everything that Agenda 21 is, and the worst of it and more, which has never been shown. And still even, it's not shown.
Well, and I would tell you that the TPP does worse than that. Because if you understand legal language, you read the TPP, it actually makes the top 5 corporations in the world the government.
Which we already knew that they were acting as anyway. I mean, really, those of us who've been paying attention all along, we understand what the partnership is that are banks, including these gigantic chemical corporations who own most of the oil companies and almost all the pharmaceutical. I mean, these things are, in essence, banks themselves, and they're part of a whole unit. And they want the world, but they're taking it now right before our eyes. And everybody wants to put it all on Obama. He's a bad son of a bitch and needs to go down for it. But he's not all of it. These guys are going to fast track and sign everything over.
Guys, if you think there's one person in D.C. who hasn't committed treason, you are sadly mistaken.
Right. Well, that's
I don't care if it's John McCain. I don't care who's there. Every one of them has committed treason by the things they voted on and voted for.
Yep.
And you know why they did that? Because they knew that they would have no consequence whatsoever to suffer for those actions.
Well,
that's why they did it. They did it. We know they've done it, and they think they're going to friggin' get away with it.
Because the people
and I hope they don't.
Detached. The people have become detached.
Yes.
You know, I mean, if you go talk to any of these kids can't tell you. I mean, I've talked to a bunch of them. They can't even tell you who was freaking president during the Civil War.
Oh, hey, you remember jaywalking?
And the fact that what happened then actually started most of what we're suffering under today.
Yeah. Yep. Well, Joe McCarthy was right. He was absolutely right. And they should have listened to him, and they should have kept going, but they didn't. And now we're suffering the consequences for it. The guy knew what was going on. Everybody thought he was crazy. Everybody thought he was a loon in that. Oh no, we've stamped out communism. This, that, and we've stamped it out. It's not going to come here. And he was telling it was already here, and it was already inside of our government, and it was already taking root. And that we had an opportunity to cut it off then. It didn't happen. And now we're reaping that benefit.
Yeah.
And I would agree with that statement.
People don't understand also they look at communism. Communism is a mechanism. When you look at what even Russia became, this extreme Marxism, communism, the giant union that they became, and all of these countries that were involved, and then this Great Depression that we saw, the people suffering greatly. When they collapsed that communist state and turned it into what it became, the one thing that went almost unnoticed, the greatest number of millionaires that the world has ever known surfaced in Russia out of this great depressed economy and this collapsed communism. It is a mechanism that feeds to the top for the people who sit above the whole society that they suppress under it.
Yeah, Bilderbergers and Rothschilds. It's not just a conspiracy.
I mean, let's look at the Lehman Brothers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, how many people know that they had $86 billion in offshore accounts that we could find when they got bailed out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I didn't know. But you know what?
Didn't know that.
They've got it rat-holed somewhere.
Well, I look at it this way. There's a lot of those. I mean, you get this Forbes list of the wealthiest, blah, blah. What a joke. There's a whole separate list of trillionaires who I'm more concerned with.
Okay,
you remember when Bunker Hunt? You remember Bunker Hunt, the Hunt brothers, when they tried to corner the silver market? I mean, it's the same old. It's horrendous. Hey, fellas, I hate to end it here, but we've run out of our time. It's I've had one hell of an eye-opening discussion tonight, and I hope everybody else has too. Thank you for the education. I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to go and look at that blog and just see what I can see and learn what I can do to help myself and the people that I know. God bless you guys.
Okay,
and for KC.
So ending it for KC tomorrow, I can't be there. I'm not in Texas, but if everybody who's capable of being around that courthouse tomorrow or in that courtroom, if they could do that, that would be awesome for him.
Oh yeah. If anybody can be there, I'm 600 miles away. If anybody is there and can be there for him, please, dear God, show up for him. You know, he needs it. We need you to show up, not only for him but for the rest of us. They can't be there.
Yeah.
Oh, guys, I'm gonna send it out the same way that he would. David, I appreciate you guys so much for coming on here, and thank you for the education tonight. I just found out how much scale I've got on my eyes, and I've got some chiseling to do. So, good night, guys.
All righty.
Thank you. Good night.
The hallmark of Jimmy Johnson's championships has been... Stick-haired politician, I've got some news for you. If you want to come try to take my gun, son, you better be bulletproof. Don't try to tell my children when and where to pray. No, we ain't that far gone, still standing on the land of the free and the home of the brave. No, I'm not your normal political society. This is coming from real America's son and pissed off redneck.